Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. It is Dara and Josie here with you today for another installment of Competitive Insights. And today we're going to be talking about what I think is fair to say is our favourite detachment. Might not be the World Eaters community favourite detachment, but we sure love playing Goretrack Onslaught. Isn't that right, Josie?
Absolutely. It's the detachment that is just the most fun in the book. Yeah. Even if it's not got the damage, it is the most fun. And I don't think there's anybody really that's played it that would argue against that.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe people who give it a try, their first attempt with Goretrack is usually like, oh, you know, whatever. But then as you kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, the engine, so to speak, it actually becomes like a really, really fun detachment. The thing that I love about it, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel with a lot of the detachments in the book, like Possessed Slaughterbands, which is near and dear to my heart, and Berserker Warband, is they're quite formulaic. They kind of develop a pattern which is, it's not quite agnostic to who you're playing against, but it's kind of like, I have my plan and I'm going to stick to it. Whereas like Goretrack feels a lot more like reactive, and like, I'm going to create these bizarre puzzles mid-game which are going to be completely unique that will never come up again, but they'll be really cool. So like, I love that kind of dynamism about it. But how do you feel about it? Like, do you have a similar kind of vibe? Or
I absolutely agree. The outside of Berserker Warband, which has the sort of advance and charge, but even then you know what you're advancing and charging. All the other detachments, they are limited by their speed. At the end of the day, if you run Calls of Blood, Jackals move 7 inches. You can't make it any faster. Even if you run Possessed, your guys move 10 inches. They can move 13 out of a Land Raider. You have a 25-inch threat range. It's not enough to really do amazing things that your opponent won't expect. And it does lend itself to playing the game in a very similar way every time. Goretrack, you can play 3 or 4 different modes within the same list, and you get to decide in deployment, or even after deployment, after you've rolled the first turn, what mode you decide you want to play in, and that makes it really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wild detachment. I think it has a lot of, like, there's almost like builds within Goretrack. I mean, we're going to talk about a couple of lists, and we kind of think between the two of us that we've sort of solved Goretrack in terms of like the most competitive list, but there's definitely valid ways to play. I mean, like, if you're a sucker for the Lord of Skulls, which I know at least 50% of the people in this video are, like, there's ways of making that work. And, you know, you can make like a gun Goretrack list. There's so many different things you can do. But basically, we're going to talk today a little bit about like the detachment strengths. We're going to go through kind of the core stuff that you need to know, and we're going to go through some lists. So, Josie, what do we got coming up first?
Yeah, so we'll open just a very quick look at how the detachment's done since the Codex released, because we took a good look at it when the Codex came out. We had our ideas about how it might do and where it might sit, and in practice, it's been fairly balanced, I think. Since in the chapter approved meta, so in the last sort of 6 months or so, which is pretty much the entirety of our Codex, it is sat at a cool 49% win rate, and that is, I mean, it's what GW would like. In that time, Berserker Warband sat at 51%, so we're pretty much on the World Eaters average, and that is based off a whole 41 players in the last 6 months, which is not great, but is certainly better than some of our detachments.
It's not quite Berserker Warband numbers, but
no. But, you know, a 50-50 win rate, it feels about right, to be honest. It's the kind of detachment that is possible to specialize in. But a lot of people who'll run it for the first time, or even an early few times, might not have the feel for it yet. And I feel like it's a very easy detachment to lose with until you've got a grip on it.
Yeah. And even I feel like when you do, like taking the foot off the gas, I'm going to do so many of these puns, by the way. Taking your foot off the gas for like a minute in a game can cost you so much, you know? Like it's a detachment that's very vulnerable to kind of, if you put yourself out of position, it really hurts. Like, I mean, it's kind of the case with any World Eater's army, but I really feel it with Goretrack. I'm like, ooh, I moved that Rhino in the wrong place, and now that Rhino's dead, and that Rhino was a really key asset that I needed to keep alive. But yeah, I think it's like, I mean, look, bang in the middle of the road, win rate is perfectly fine. It's actually a little bit better than what I expected, to be honest. So yeah, I can't really complain too much.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So Why do you think people aren't playing Goretrack? Why do you think everyone's playing Berserker Warband instead of specifically Goretrack?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, and I mean, I've gotten this in pretty much every single conversation I've had with people who haven't played Goretrack, is they all say the same thing. It lacks damage. And I think that's because on the face of it, you don't really see any abilities, be they the detachment rule, the enhancements, or the stratagems, which are telling you here is some more damage. And that puts World Leader players off because they're fiends for damage. They just love a bit of damage. And you're looking at the abilities, you're looking at how everything comes together, and maybe it's not quite obvious on the surface how it all synergizes together. When actually, in my opinion, in terms of synergy, it's the best written detachment in our codex. Like, everything actually works together so beautifully when you are building it correctly and when you're playing it correctly. It's just like, you feel like you have so many options at any given time. And I think until, like, literally, I was one of the haters in the beginning. You know, I looked at Goretrack and was like, nah, I don't really see the damage here, you know? And then I put it on the table kind of as a joke, and it literally, over the course of one tournament, became my favorite detachment, and I haven't run anything else since then. So, yeah, it's,
I'm not surprised.
I think the damage is a big one, and there is definitely a skill floor to this detachment, which is higher than a skill floor in Berserker Warband or Possessed Slaughterband, for example. Because to make good use of the abilities in this detachment, you need to be able to kind of think about them. It's a bit more cerebral, in my opinion. It's not quite like, go into combat, here's an extra AP, you know? There's more to it than that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is those tricks that you only master with enough playtime. Berserker Warband and several of our other detachments have some really good ways of getting yourself out of trouble, of digging yourself out of a bad problem by just spending a CP. Goretrack, if you lose your rhinos early, if you throw away your transports, you don't have a detachment, realistically, and it's a really easy thing to do. People are used to play, I'll just play the rhino drift, I'll send this rhino into combat, and then all of a sudden they've got no way of playing the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bad. I actually distinctly remember you kind of highlighting that in your first tries of Goretrack. I think you were talking in the Patreon chat before I'd ever played Goretrack, and you were saying, like, your experiences of, like, if you lose those rhinos, if they get taken out early, you're just playing with data sheets, you know? You don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think that was after a practice game where I put into Chaos Knights, and it was horrific after I lost their rhinos.
Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, do you think there's anything else on that front? Like, what is putting people off Goretrack before we kind of move on?
I think there is. I mean, there's a lot of chatter in general that says Berserker Warband is the only way to play World Eaters. I feel, for me, Goretrack plays more like old Vessels. And Vessels, it didn't really take off in a big way. We felt at the time like it was arguably a better way to play World Eaters, even then. And I think this plays a very sort of similar, tricky game plan that can really put pressure on in a way that people aren't expecting. But at the same time, it plays the most like Index World Eaters. It's the only detachment that has the same threat range. It's the only detachment that has turn 1 charge threat from more than Chaos Spawn. It lets you play the game the way that you remember playing it a year ago. And there's something to be said for that, but a lot of people moved on very quickly, and we can't live without -1 damage anymore, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a real, like, 40k boomer and you played in 8th edition, this is literally how World Leaders played in 8th edition, where it's just like, pack them into rhinos and land raiders and drive them across the board. So for me, I'm like a little bit of a sucker for that nostalgia as well. But yeah, there's nuance to it, and we're going to get into that nuance, right? So what do we want to talk about here first? Yeah,
before we get too far into the nuance of it, let's actually talk about the detachment. So we'll go through the detachment rule, the enhancements, the strats, and we'll start with the actual detachment rule itself for Goretrack. Because it is a doozy, and it's a very simple one. It's a 1-sentence detachment rule, which is great. Plain and simple, every time a World Eaters unit from your army disembarks from a transport, for the rest of that turn, add 1 to charge rolls made for that unit, and your melee weapons have lance, which is just +1 to wound. And that +1 to charge comes up surprisingly often.
Oh, it's it shocked me. Yeah, it's shocking how much you're like, oh cool, I made that charge, and I wouldn't have. It's like low key, these are two abilities. You read them and you're like, meh, whatever. And then on the table, you're like, oh my god, these are good. Like, really, really good.
Absolutely. And Lance is the kind of thing that very often gets ignored by the people because they say, oh, you just give +2 strength instead on the charge in Berserker Warband. In practice, there's a lot of things that Lance comes out better into. Not just for Berserkers, but for all sorts of things that get out of transports. But Berserker specifically, once you get past strength 12 or up, Lance is better.
Yeah.
Always. There's also, I think, very specifically like T7, which there is a surprisingly reasonable amount of stuff that is T7 in the game. Lance is better than that. You can't get plus AP in this, but you're much more likely to get into combat in the first place to swing those hits. It's a really solid, really simple detachment rule that tells you immediately how you're going to play this list, how you're going to play any list of this detachment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people immediately gravitate towards, as you said, the Berserker comparison of like, okay, Strength 4 with Lance versus Strength 6 in Warband. You know, it's a bit of a coin toss. A lot of the time it's exactly the same. But no one ever really talks about the 8-bound getting out of the Land Raider. Strength 8 with Lance is incredible. Like, it's so good. Or the Slaughterbound attached to them with Strength 10 with Lance. Like, that man just harvests. Or I think our personal favorite is Jackals jumping out of Rhinos, which is really funny when they get Lance.
Yeah, Strength 3 Lance. It's going to win most of the game on 4s or 5s, but it's still solid. You're putting wounds on stuff.
They'll get a bit of work done. Yeah. No, it's a really, really powerful detachment rule, which, I mean, look, I think we're going to say this a lot in the video. Until you put it on the table, you're not going to understand the value of it. But that Lance is where you gain back a lot of the damage you lose for not taking Berserker Warband. And I think the eye-opener for me was realizing how much we were overkilling things in Berserker Warband. Because even without the extra attack and without the strength differential, I'm still killing most things like 8 times out of 10, you know? And if I don't kill them, I'm like, was I killing that with Berserker Warband? I'm not so sure. So I think we're like hard-coded into just like point-click delete. And not really realizing that like we're deleting so hard that like we actually have a little bit of room to kind of like come down at the other end. But yeah, phenomenal detachment rule, really, really good. And the plus to charge is you're functionally like, the way I usually describe it is like you're extending your movement by 1, because like pretty much everything that's moving in your army, particularly things getting out of transports, they're going to be charging something. So you're basically getting an extra movement. So yeah, love that. Absolutely.
And speaking of things that you won't really get until you played them on the table, let's go on to the enhancements.
Yeah.
I think this is the most interesting detachment we've got, I think, for enhancements, because all 4 of them are genuinely playable. I think 2 of them you take in every list, and the other 2 you still want to take if you've got the points for them. As far as the techie ones go, they're also fortunately very cheap. So the first one we've got is a wonderful little 5-pointer, Murderous Onslaught. It goes on any World Eaters model, although realistically you're not putting it on a Demon Prince, you're putting it on something that leads things. In the turn in which you disembark from a transport, you cannot be overwatched. Plain and simple. For 5 points, if you've got it spare, you put it on something, of course you do. This, in my opinion, is a fantastic thing to put on 8-bound, because they are very vulnerable to being overwatched. And in the game we're looking at going into, where vehicles come back into the game, there's a lot of stuff that can overwatch Exalted 8-bound. And we've seen it in Warband, we've seen it in our own games. 3 Exalted plus a Slaughterbound will flip most vehicles over. When you get overwatched and it turns into 1 Exalted plus a Slaughterbound, you probably don't kill a Rhino.
Yeah.
Being able to just ignore Overwatch, to just run at stuff, because a lot of the time maybe you can work around Overwatch by hiding behind a wall or taking a different path. You can straight line towards stuff now, and it makes everything so much more reliable, so much happier. This is my favourite of the tech enhancements. It's not yours.
It's not, but I mean, I replaced this with a slightly different one. But I mean, I ran this enhancement, like, I would say in half the tournaments I've done with Goretrack, and like it is really good. My problem is just forgetting I have it, you know. Like, just I think it was, what was it that, like, you were saying that you forget like halfway through the overwatch activation, you're just like, wait, stop.
We're allowed to do this. We're gonna stop everything.
Yeah, it's really good. Look, you don't need to kind of explain that one in too much detail. Like, I think the way that you said it very succinctly there is quite correct. It's just makes your 8-mount much happier, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Your favourite of the tech enhancements, on the other hand, is a 10-pointer. It is Unleash Hell. It's probably our wordiest one, but it plays very simply. It goes on any World Eaters model. This could go on something like a Demon Prince. Doesn't have to. It doesn't normally, but it could. Start your shooting phase, you pick either the transport that the bearer is in, or a vehicle within 6 inches of the bearer. It's quite nice to have the choice. And until the end of the phase, after that vehicle is shot, you pick an enemy unit that was hit by one or more of those attacks, and that enemy unit then is suppressed until the start of your next turn. While it's suppressed, it is -1 to hit. Shooting and melee, it's just puts a flat -1 to hit modifier on stuff. And it works really well on stuff like Land Raiders, because Land Raiders can chuck those las cannons downrange into something, chuck the heavy bolter into something downrange, and then say, oh, and the Havoc, by the way, is going to go into that scary thing over there that I'm not expecting to actually hurt. Make it -1 to hit, please.
Yeah, it's super, super good. The way that I like this is if you're just like, oh, I have to go into like a fights first break and it's going to be really annoying, but if I can soften the blow a little bit, make them -1 to hit, it's super nice. Again, very hard to remember that you have this enhancement in your army. It's much more hard, I think, than the Overwatch one. I almost never remember it. But yeah, the Land Raider is the obvious one. If you're one of those people who wants to tech in Predators, particularly the Pred Destructor, you put 2 of those down and an Unleash Hell. I feel like if you're running Predators in Goretrack, you almost have to put in the Unleash Hell to maximize the carnage of just dispensing -1 hits across the board. I like it. It's fun. Reduces your enemy's output by like 16% on the hit roll, which is a good number, It can absolutely like cripple certain armies, like things that hit on 4s when you're suddenly like, oh, cool, your big scary thing now hits on 5s. Have fun. So I'm a real big fan of that one, but I think those are the 2 arguably like the weakest enhancements in this pool, right? Because like they're kind of like the nice to have, but the next 2 are like, you can't leave home without these, right?
No, and they're both incredible. The next 2 are enhancements that any detachment in the World Eaters book, probably any detachment in the game, would love to have available to them. The first one is aggressive deployment. So for 20 points, you can put that on any World Eaters model. Again, it will go on a model that is leading something in a transport, either on a Mo or a Slaughterbound. And if the bearer starts the battle not on a Slaughterbound, ignore me entirely. It goes on a Mo and only on a Mo. If the bearer starts the battle embarked within a dedicated transport, so a Rhino, that dedicated transport has the Scout's 9 ability. Not Scout 6, like on most of our stuff, not Scout 8, like what Spawn gets, Scout 9. On a transport that then moves another 12 inches. It's amazing.
It's so
you
good.
You can move 21 inches turn 1. Or you can just scout up 9, get out 3, move your 7 or 8 inches, depending on what's getting out of your transport. And before you know it, you've moved 21 inches turn 1. Yep. And there are ways of boosting that further in the strats, which we'll get to. But it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like on GW layouts, it allows you to have a Rhino in your staging point immediately. It's just like, it's such a powerful enhancement. You can even do it to like reactively bait out deployments against your opponent. Be like, oh, I'm putting this Rhino here, and then just scout it behind something or whatever. Anything that gives you options like that. Scout 9, it's just such a long distance to be able to rocket a Rhino up the board. It's absolutely
really
nuts.
Is.
Phenomenal. You just can't leave home without this. It has to go on a Mo, and that has to be in your army. Every list starts, 80 points down, because you just have to have this.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that we found is that Mo doesn't actually have to lead anything. He doesn't need to be leading a unit. And a Rhino now, in this edition, has a capacity of 12 models, which means you can still put 10 of anything, 10 Berserkers, and their leader, and this guy in a transport. And that transport can still go Scout 9. So you can still have a really cool Khorne plus 10 if you want maximum damage. And you can rocket that into somebody turn 1. And they either won't be expecting it, in which case you're going to do a lot of damage, or they've got an awful lot of threat to play around.
And if you draw area denial in turn 1, you just send out the lone Mo to just to do that dirty work.
Yeah, I find having this in a list, it does that thing that we had in the old index where anybody with an infiltrator immediately had to put those infiltrators directly in front of your army. We now have goremongers, which means 50% of the time we can actually still guarantee a rhino a safe path. But even if you lose that infiltrate roll-off, your opponent then has to put whatever their cheapest or whatever their favorite infiltrator is directly in front of your army, which means you're killing something turn one.
Yep.
You've still won on that for 20 points.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's just a wonderful enhancement. Yeah, awesome. And then the last one, the real doozy.
Oh, last but very much not least, Infernal Infusion. It is 25 points, so it is the most expensive one, but 25 points is nothing if you are a glaive or helm enjoyer. And what it does, you put it on a World Eaters model. This can go on a Moe or a Slaughterbound very happily. Once a battle, start the fight phase, use your enhancement, and your unit has fight first. It's incredible. You might not have your lance, you might not have any attack boost, but it does not matter, because if you fight first with Berserkers or with 8-bound, you're going to kill most or all of the thing that charged you.
Yep. And there are weird ways that you can get the lance back. But yeah, it's situational. But yeah, look, fight first. Did you miss Mo, basically? Did you miss Index Mo? He's back, I mean, I think I put this on a Slaughterbound once, which is obviously really good, but really it just shines on Berserkers because the amount of tricks you can do with rhinos in this detachment just makes life an absolute nightmare for your opponent to deal with, particularly. I mean, like, is there anything more terrifying on WTC and GW layouts when you just have a rhino with a fight first Mo and 10 boys parked inside it in a ruin that you can't shoot at on an objective that you want to get to? I'm like, how do you interact with that? And that's the puzzle that I present to most of my opponents. I put that somewhere and I just say, right, that's your problem. You can work it out because I can't. So have fun.
Absolutely. And the value of the World Eaters Rhino, of course, is that we have the reactive disembark. If somebody gets within 9 inches, you can just disembark for free. And if you do that with a fight first unit, it lets you present all sorts of issues. You can disembark onto an objective. Sure, you could. Or if your opponent sends a scary melee thing and parks it on one side of your rhino, you just disembark on the other one.
Yep.
And you say, okay, you're 7 inches, 8 inches away from me right now. Do you want to charge the boys who can fight first anyway? Do you want to charge the rhino and let me heroic into your boys, get fight first with lance? Or do you want to just stand there and die next turn? Those are, now you're on the options.
Yep.
And it presents people with puzzles that they don't have an answer to. And that's where World Eaters win.
I think the funniest thing you can do in that exact situation is, like, they don't interact with you, so you obviously don't interact with them, and then at the end of the fight phase you spend a CP and jump them back into the rhino so you can get your lance in the next turn when they jump out again. It's like the Mo fake out, he comes out of the rhino door, he's like, hello, goodbye. Yeah, it's a phenomenal suite of enhancements. I mean, like, really the choice is, are you bringing Unleash Hell or are you bringing what is it again? Malicious Onslaught? Murderous Onslaught. And it's a tough choice between those two. It just depends what way you want to go. I think the No Overwatch is kind of like the safe pick. But if you're packing a Land Raider, it can be really useful to put Unleash Hell in there too. Honestly, I think, in my opinion, there isn't really one that's better than the other there. They're both very similar. But the other two enhancements, like, you just can't not take them. Our book is begging for fights first wherever you can find it. This is the only place you can get it, so use it now. And with Blood Angels on the horizon and Victrix Honor Guard, I think I like fights first on a Berserker brick a lot.
Very much so. Very, very much so.
Okie dokie. So this is where we get into the real meat of it, I think, the stratagems, right?
Absolutely. We have, as all detachments do, we have a full suite of 6, and arguably all 6 of them are extremely usable. Over the course of any tournament, you'll find yourself using, or at least threatening to use, all of them. One of the things that I really like about this strat suite, by the way, is the fact that you won't use a lot of them, because you will tell your opponent that you can use them, and they won't let you use them.
Yeah.
Which means you get to not worry about doing the thing, you save the CP, and you control your opponent's game without having to do a single thing apart from remembering what your strats are.
Yeah. I mean, the
really
strats are basically all control. right? It's
Yeah.
exactly what you said. It's whether or not you use them, and that's Goretrack in a nutshell. It's whether or not you're using your abilities, you are dictating the state of the game, how much control you have over it, and a good Goretrack player will have their opponent in like a problem vice from turn 2 onwards, where it's basically like, I have put this rhino here, and they're like, right, if I approach this rhino, what can happen? And you pull out this scroll and you read off all the things that can happen if they even just get near the rhino, or if they shoot the rhino, or if they charge the rhino. And then they're like, wow, that's a lot of things, so I better like not interact with it. And then I'm like, yes, but if you don't interact with it, here's the second scroll, and it's all the things that the rhino will do in my turn. And then, like, I've literally, like, run down my opponent's clock because they're just sitting there being like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to interact with these stupid metal boxes. So yeah, let's talk about those strats.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are all 1 CP. We'll open with possibly the best one, Endless Pursuit of Violence, which is at the end of your fight phase. You pick a World Eater's infantry unit from your army, and you pick a transport that it could embark in. And as long as your World Eater's infantry unit is wholly within 6 inches of that transport, it just gets back in. This is incredibly good for recycling your detachment roll. You will often find that because you have access to 6-inch Paladin and Consolidate, especially, you're able to get out on your side of a wall, charge something that's on an objective miles away from you, and as long as you end that charge within 12 inches of your own transport at the end of your fight, you can just move 6 inches straight back towards your box, get back in. It's as if nothing ever happened, except your rhino is still safely behind a wall, and there is nothing where your opponent used to be. Anything that lets you recycle units completely for free is amazing. We've seen it with Eldar. They can do it. They previously could do it with all of their transports. We can do it too. There's one very key thing to note with this strat, is that it does not care whether you are locked in combat or not. If you charge something, do most of the damage to your opponent, and don't quite kill them, that's okay. Just get back in anyway. It does not matter. Yep. Let that one guy stand on an objective, be an auto-seed by a rhino. You don't care.
It's definitely the best strat in the detachment. I think it's a good contender for one of the best strats in the codex. Like, everything you said is entirely correct. The situations you can do with it are absolutely bizarre. It really promotes a sort of like tag team approach of Rhino and Berserkers, where basically, I mean, what I find I do a lot of it is I charge both in. And after I finish, blending the thing that I want to blend, you still have some movement capacity with the Rhino because of its, its consolidates or its pylons, depending on the situation. And then your guys can jump back in, you can create all these other situations. But the part behind the wall, kill the things, jump back in behind the wall, I mean, it's like, it allows you to 2-for-1 with your Berserkers. Because now suddenly, what we're so used to is the Berserks come out, they kill the thing, and then they die. That doesn't have to happen in Goretrack. And it's one of probably the most powerful thing in the book, to be honest, is the fact that you can get mileage out of your Berserks or your 8-pounds. I mean, like, the amount of times that I'm like, cool, the 8-pounder jumping back in the Land Raider, now that, 18 wound unit or whatever, that you thought you were going to kill comfortably is now trapped inside a massive, T12 metal box with a 2-up armor save. Enjoy! So it really, it does a lot for preserving your units. But also, I think you've had to explain this stratagem to me 3 or 4 times since I started playing Goretrack, because I keep, missing parts of it. I mean, the first thing you told me was you can be in combat and jump back in. Phenomenal. You also just, don't have to have left that vehicle, You could have, guys blend something, and if there's an empty rhino nearby, they just, jump in, even if they weren't there before. The play that you've talked a lot about with the Terminators, where they deep strike in, go for the 9, and if they fail, they just jump into the Land Raider. I'm like, that's, the craziest thing, So stuff like that. There's, a bizarre amount of situations that stratagem comes up for, but, yeah, top one.
It's a huge skill expression moment, I think, that strat. Mm-hmm. It lets you play some incredible gameplay. Mm-hmm. Next up is Smash Through. It does pretty much what it says on the tin. You use it in your movement phase. I wish you could use it in your charge phase, but you can't. You pick a vehicle that hasn't been selected to move yet, and until the end of the phase, when you make a normal or an advanced move, you can move directly through terrain.
Yep.
Walk through walls. It's everything that you need.
It's super good.
Hellbrutes love this. Rhinos love this. Every single vehicle in your book loves this. You would consider using this on a load of skulls sometimes, because then it doesn't have to take a battle shock test.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is one of the things that really makes the Hellbrute shine, which we're going to talk about. But rapid ingressing behind a ruin where your opponent can't interact with them. Next turn, he comes through the ruin. It's that simple. It's a beautiful strat. You're probably going to use this at least once, if not like up to 3 times in any game you play with Goretrack. I feel like it's just anything that in a vehicle-based attachment, if you can increase the maneuverability of your vehicles, it's good. So yeah, doesn't bear too much explanation, that one.
Absolutely. The next one I think catches people out a lot. I think they read the strat and they think it plays one thing and they just completely ignore what the rest of it can do. This is aggressive disembarkation.
I know exactly what you're going to say. Yeah.
In your movement phase, you pick a rhino, and it has to be a rhino. It can't be any transport, but that's fine. And you can disembark. And when you disembark, you can get out within 6 inches of your rhino. Great. You can also set up within engagement range of one or more enemy units. And the strat is very keen to tell you that. And most people will look at it and think, oh, great, it lets me get out into combat. This is a great use of the strat. That's
Can
not
I ask
what
you something, Josie?
For.
How many times have you used this strat and gotten out into combat?
0. Absolutely 0. You never do it.
You lose, Lance. What are you doing? Like,
what it is a 6-inch disembark.
Yeah.
Just think of it as that. That's all you need. You don't get out 3. You get plus 3 inches to your move. And what this really means is it competes directly with Berserker Warband's advance and charge. Because the average roll on an advance is 3.5 inches. You are guaranteed plus 3.
And technically it's 4. Because you're getting
4.
plus 1 to your charge. So
absolutely.
It's better than Berserker Warband.
It's so good.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's really, really incredible. I mean, this one, I know I said about the last one, you'll use it in every game. This one you will use multiple times in every game, for sure. Like, it's 6-inch disembark on 8-inch moving berserkers. You've got plus 1 to charge. You could be jumping out of a rhino that's just scouted. Tell me where is safe, because there's nowhere safe, you know? Phenomenal. Never, ever, ever disembark into combat. Like, that's crazy.
Just charge it with something else, it's fine.
Yeah, just don't do that. Unless you're like, okay, I'm actually going to get Overwatch to hell. You know, that's the only situation in which you're like, right, I'm going to just jump straight in. But yeah, it's really, really, really powerful. Like, the threat range on Berserkers with this strat alone is just, you can't say no.
Yeah, it's incredible. And thinking of things that give your Berserkers threat range, we can do it twice. Because we also have full throttle assault. In your movement phase, you pick a rhino that hasn't moved yet, and it turns your rhino into a land raider. Until the end of the phase, each time a unit disembarks from that model after it's made a normal move, you can still charge. So don't worry about disembarking 6. Just move your rhino 12 inches and then disembark 3. You've gone 15 inches anyway.
Yep. Or if it's the rhino that has Mo and then like 10 berserkers and a leader attached, why not do both with the same rhino? I've done that before. That's messed up. It's like Khorne and the boys go rocketing out, and then the rhino moves, and Mo like falls out at the end and just like barrels into someone. But yeah, it just means that both your rhinos, because typically Goretrack, you're running 2 rhinos in pretty much all lists. Both of them have almost equal threat range for their berserks, which brilliant. Everything we just said for the last stratagem applies for this stratagem as well.
You are committing your rhino when you do this, but a lot of the time committing your rhino is fine because you're looking to get back into it afterwards.
Yep. 100%.
This is not a loss. It entirely depends on which circumstance suits you best.
Yeah. I think this one, it does put out the rhino into a little bit more risk. And I think if you're maybe less experienced with Goretrack, you can end up losing that rhino quite easily. Whereas the other one is like, you can park the rhino in like your home field objective ruin and just rocket berserkers out every turn and do it that way. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But yep, both amazing strats. Love it.
Absolutely. Then we have 2 strats which are not usable by the same unit in the same turn, which is an interesting one. But first we have Unrelenting Advance, which in my opinion is amazing. I adore this strat, and it is in your opponent's shooting phase. After an enemy unit has shot, you pick a vehicle that was hit, not even damaged, but just hit by one or more of the attacking unit's attacks, and your vehicle can just move 6 inches. It's a normal move, so it triggers whatever would be triggered by that, but it is just a normal move of up to 6 inches. It's a reactive move. It's incredible. And a lot of the time you'll be thinking, okay, I can park a vehicle out. I can put shooting stuff out here. I can poke a load of skulls out and shoot something. And if I get shot, I can move back behind a wall. That's all well and good. What you sometimes don't think about, and what your opponent sometimes doesn't think about, is if they shoot your lot of skulls, or your land raider, or your rhino full of very angry things, they don't kill it. You don't have to go 6 inches further away from your opponent. You can turn around and move 6 inches straight towards them.
Yep. I've blocked off so many people from charging my units with land raiders by doing this, by just being like, oh, I have this giant brick of plastic in between you and the thing you want to charge now. But I also read this as like, are you capable of killing a land raider in a single shooting activation? Because if not, for 1 CP, you will not get the option of shooting it again. So, yeah.
Absolutely. What that means in practice, not so much for your rhinos, because rhinos are relatively squishy, but for something like a land raider, what it means is that if your opponent doesn't think they have a way of one-shotting it, and you tell your opponent about this strat, your land raider is never going to get shot. It is going to take 0 damage for the entire game, because your opponent isn't going to give you the reactive move. And that means you never have to worry about those 3 or 4 las cannons randomly pinging your land raider from full.
Mm-hmm.
We've all had it happen to us. They won't even try, because when they fail, and most of the time they will, it goes very badly for them.
Yeah. So speaking of things that deter your opponent from plink shooting, tell me about the Angry Beehive, Josie.
Fury Unleashed.
This has to be like one of the funniest stratagems in the book.
Do you like a d6 plus 2-inch blood surge on your berserkers? Well, what if I tell you that you can go up to d6 plus 5? You want a 12-inch threat range bubble around your rhino? You got it, because after your opponent has shot you in the shooting phase, you pick a rhino, has to be a rhino, that didn't die and was hit by one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Your berserkers then disembark, so they get out 3 inches, and then they make a blood surge move. So you choose where they get out. It's very difficult for your opponent to control what the closest unit is in the same way that they can when you're just standing on foot. And it gives you the ability to potentially blood surge 11 inches in one go. An opponent can't get within 12 inches of your rhino now. Not the 9 that they're worried about with the reactive disembark. If they come within 12, they are risking getting blood surged into. The amount of board control that this grants you is
it's just
absolutely
insane.
Incredible.
I mean, like, for a mixed arms army, which is relying on cracking open your box and then charging it with a combat unit to kill the contents inside. That stratagem, combined with Fight First Mo, combined with the reactive disembark on the rhino, it just makes that package absolute hell for them to engage with. Because what are they supposed to do? Now, I know it's not hard to one-shot a rhino, but at what point are you comfortable saying, okay, this is all I'm going to put into that rhino to commit to killing it? Because, like, that stratagem alone will freak out your opponent so much. Even if you know in your heart that the rhino is going to die to the thing that they're talking about shooting into it, but you just have to deadeye them and say, well, if you don't kill it, don't forget that this will happen to you. And they go right back to square one in terms of planning.
Absolutely.
It's just,
and you say, I've got 2 CP. I can pop smoke as well. And I will.
And then you just tell them, well, if you don't deal with that rhino, they could disembark 6 inches and move in their next turn. What are you going to do? Like, this is what we were talking about at the start, where it's kind of like the rhino package behind a wall. It's like this hellscape problem to deal with. Or I'm just like, I just put them there, and my opponent's like, well, how do I deal with it? And I'm like, I'm not sure. I've never been able to work out a solution. That's your job. So, yeah. I mean, look, this is the stratagem that I would say easily gets played the least in Goretrack. You very rarely actually get to use it, but the threat of using it is phenomenal, you know? And, like, when you do get to use it, it's so funny, you know, because, like, I've had one very memorable game against Thousand Suns where the Dark Matter Crystal squad, like, teleported right up next to it. By no right should the Rhino live in this situation. But I was like, you know what? Pop smoke, see what happens. Rhino lives on 2 wounds. The boys get out. They say, hello, Infernal Sorcerer. You're about to eat shit. And just pound him into the ground. And you know what I did at the end of that? Because Mo kills the character, I was like, oh, he's genuinely a CP. I might spend that CP to jump back into the Rhino. Then I can get my lance in the next turn. Oh, and I'll have another CP for the 6-inch disembark. Nice. And I actually thought my opponent was going to collapse. But that's what I mean. Like Goretrack, it's a massive cascade when things go your way.
Oh, yeah.
It's so rapid how your opponent can just one small mistake or one swing of the dice in your favor, and suddenly the game is gone from them. It just completely evaporates in their hands because the problems that you set up they're almost like exponential in terms of like when one problem happens, all the other problems are so much worse. So that suite of stratagems, those enhancements, the detachment rule, it all just comes together into a very cohesive blob, which really the challenge then I think is building a list that can maximize all of these abilities, because nothing here is bad, but you want to be using everything, right?
This is true. Before we talk lists, and we will definitely talk a couple of lists, we've got one that we absolutely adore, and we also have a list that has won an event very recently, which is a spicy list.
Yes.
When you're building a list, what is the core of Goretrack? What do you need to have in a Goretrack list? Because I think if you're building something like a possessed Lordaban list, I know I've talked about that quite recently, your core is actually about 1,600 points of your army. It's almost entirely written itself. Is that the same in Goretrack?
No, I don't think so. I think your core is maybe about 1,000. For me, the core is 2 Rhinos, 2 Masters of Executions, Khorne, 20 Berserkers, and I think maybe controversially, part of that core has to be Goremongers, because you need to have the option to screen your Scouting Rhino. Once you have that group of units, you can take good advantage of all the tools at your disposal. So then I think, personally, it's about things that work for you. So you can have the argument of, I know the two of us are, we won't leave home without the Land Raider. And like that probably is core to me, but I don't think that's like actually core to the Goretrack package. So I really think it's like 20 Zerks, the correct characters to go with those Zerks, some Goremongers, and the Rhinos. And then after that, it's like what vehicles you like. It's what support elements you want to bring in. How do you want to bulk up your scoring? That kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. What about you? Do you think there's any difference to that core? Or
I think for me, I would put a Land Raider in the core, and I would say 1 Rhino package is compulsory. I don't think you necessarily need 2, although I think almost every list benefits from 2. The only reason that I don't think you necessarily need 2 is because I know I have built a list with a lot of skulls in it, and the only thing that is sensible to take out of the list in that case is 1 of the Rhino packages.
Yeah,
and it still plays reasonably well, but I think if you're not taking a lot of skulls specifically, you take 2 Rhinos.
I won't disagree there. Yeah. I think that's entirely accurate. Cool. I like that. Do we want to go over kind of some, before we jump into lists, like some key sort of play patterns, archetypes that you need to be thinking about? Just broadly, like how is it playing on the table,
Yeah, absolutely. So it's got several modes. Goretrack in general. You can play full pressure. It's probably a mode that I use more often than not, actually. Now, if you go first, especially, look at that pressure list. Consider just jamming 10 Berserkers into your opponent's deployment zone turn 1, and then doing it again turn 2, and then sending some 8-bound in turn 3, and by the end of that, there shouldn't really be much of them left. There probably won't be much of you left either, but you'll have Rhinos on points, and you've killed most of the stuff that has any way of killing your vehicles.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the full aggression. It doesn't particularly suit the suite of strats because we have tricky strats. But we do also have just a few strats that let you go fast, hit hard, and remove your opponent from the board.
Yeah. No, I like it. Yeah. I guess the other option then is maybe more kind of what I fall into a lot of the time, where it's like put the boxes in annoying places and make your opponent deal with them. And I mean, like for me, that's the core play pattern. The annoying places depends on what opponent I'm playing. But broadly speaking, I find that there's not really a lot of armies in the game where they can just decide, well, I'm just going to walk in and pick up the boxes and all the guys inside and not really have to worry about the consequences. Knights is the big one. I think Knights is probably a very red matchup for Goretrack, whereas it's not for Berserker Warband or Possessed Slaughter Band. But it has always jumped out to me as being a matchup which I can comfortably kill 2 big knights. After that, I'm struggling. You know?
You run out of gas real fast. You do. But I think what we have found with a lot of experimentation at this point is that there are lists out there in Goretrack, more than, I think only Goretrack to be honest, that can, in the same game, transition from full-on aggression to passive-aggressive and the other way.
Yeah.
We can stage up incredibly well. And we've built a list that can go full out turn 1 with some very, very cheap things and then still set up really frustrating rhino plays into the mid-game.
Yeah. Shall we dive into that list?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've spent a bit of time talking about this one recently, so please do explain to us what you think about the Drive to Unalive.
Drive to Unalive. Okay. This is our baby. I think we were cooking this list for a while.
Yeah.
Like this was a slow cooker recipe. Let me just pull it up here so that I have it to hand, but I have it fairly committed to memory. So honestly, it's revolving around a lot of the things that we've already talked about that we both enjoy. It has that kind of core package in there as well, but it has units that we haven't really touched on yet, which I think are near and dear to our hearts, but actually are extremely effective in Goretrack Onslaught. So, we've got Khorne, we've got the Scouting Mo, we've got the Fight First Mo, and we have the Slaughterbound. And in this list, you have the points to either do Unleash Hell or Murderous Onslaught. So whichever one you fancy, which is great. It's adaptable. So we have 2 Berserker squads, 10 mans, I'd love to see them. 2 Rhinos, a Land Raider, single unit of spawn. We've got 3 8-bound, 3 Exalted, Goremongers, 3 squads of 10 Jackals, and the double Hellbrutes. So a lot of this reads pretty normal. It's like, okay, I'm not surprised to see these things in Goretrack. We've already talked about their use cases, but there's definitely some things in here which is like, whoa. Put the brakes down. 30 Jackals. It's pretty weird, right?
Definitely is.
1 squad of spawn. Also pretty weird. But there's a reason for both of those things. Because I think it's fair to say, it's probably not unlikely that the 2 of us put together have more reps in Goretrack than like 90% of the World Eaters player base.
That's true, yeah.
And what the 2 of us found was that, look, we know Spawn are amazing, but in Goretrack they're really just not quite what you want them to be.
Yeah, they're just fine.
They're totally fine. But what kind of competes in the same damage bracket is 10 Jackals jumping out of a transport with Lance and +1 to charge. And when you actually look at the math, there's certain 5-man squads or 10-man guard squads or Eldar squads that the Jackals just outperform the spawn. So it's always good to have 1 squad of spawn, because sometimes you do just want to kill some power armor, and Jackals do struggle a little bit there. But 10 Jackals jumping out of Rhinos is cheaper than spawn. They can sticky objectives. They can do a lot more things in Goretrack, such as they can not jump out of the Rhinos, and your opponent can move near said Rhinos, and then they can threaten to jump out, or they can use any of the other really good strats. Notably, the one that we really like, you can scout a Rhino 9, you can jump out the Jackal 6 inches, you can move them 7 inches. So they have rocketed up the field, and they still have +1 to charge in their roll. So you can finish with Jackals on your opponent's home field in turn 1 if you feel so inclined. And if, for some ungodly reason, they live, they have also stickied your opponent's home field turn 1, but that will not happen. But yeah, I think that's the first thing to talk about, right? Is that Jackal chaff trading annoyance, which is a little bit weird in Drive to Unalive. What's kind of been your experience with it, Josie? Do you still like them?
I think they're incredible. One of the issues that Goretrack has is that if you play that sort of wave assault game, you're going to run out of waves by turn 3. If you get to turn 3 and your opponent still has enough stuff on the board and you haven't killed enough stuff, you've still spent basically all of your assets, and it's game.
Yeah.
What Jackals do is they let you spend 130 points for 2 squads of them. They go out and die turn 1, and that is an incredibly cheap first wave. And what it means is you'll usually have assets until turn 4 instead. And sending out another squad of 10 Berserkers in turn 4 is just backbreaking for your opponent a lot of the time. They won't have stuff left after they've killed their piece, and your Blood Surge becomes a big threat. Just your Berserkers in general. If you manage to save Khorne till last, what's killing Khorne twice after turn 4? Like,
Yeah.
it lets you lock down the game.
It's only ever happened to me in Drive 2 Unalive, but I have had it happen more than once, in fact more than 5 times at this point, where I have gotten to bottom of turn 4, I still have a squad of Berserkers in a Rhino, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, I could play the game without this squad and win comfortably. And it's so weird. I've never had that kind of like, oh, this feels very comfortable, you know? So I love the Jackals for that. Now, most of the time they're starting inside the Rhinos, that sort of a thing, so that you have that projection in turn 1. And usually what it means in Drive 2 Unalive is as soon as they're out, the Berserkers are jumping in. That's really all there is to it. It's not complicated. Mo is inside with 10 of the boys, and you know, he just tells them to run on out, and maybe he runs with them if he needs to. Mo, like that pocket Mo is great. If someone's left a character exposed like that he can get to in turn 1, that's a CP that you're going to need later on. Because what I find in Goretrack is I bank my CP until turn 2 or 3. I literally spend as minimal as possible, because when you have your go turn in Goretrack, it is like going to drain you of CP.
Yes.
So that's part of it. Hellbrutes is the other one. Hellbrutes are just the best in Goretrack.
They are. I still think they're the best units in the book, and I will fight any spawn enjoyers on that. I still say Hellbrutes are the single points for damage, points for effectiveness, points for mind games, the best unit we've got access to.
Mm-hmm. I personally think in Goretrack, when you're already presenting your opponent with so many problems, when this freak walks in from Strategic Reserve and comes with his own suite of problems, it's hellish for the opponent to deal with. And I mean, I guess for the context of people who aren't really aware of exactly the nuance here, it's just simply the combination of the Hellbrute will fight as many times as he can activate, and you combine that with 6-inch Pilot and Consolidate, and this man will activate until there is no opponent left to activate into. When you're already trying to deal with these Rhinos that can do 10 different things, a Land Raider that can reactive move, and then suddenly this guy has rapid ingress in an area that you can't deal with, and you know he can come through that wall in the next turn, and you have positioned in such a way, because your movement's done, he's going to come in where there's like enemy units strung relatively close together. And I don't know if you've ever tried or seen someone try and screen the spacing for the Hellbrutes, like to be like, cool, so I have to be exactly like 9 inches away with every single unit. Like, yeah, have fun doing that, you know? 2 of these guys is phenomenal. Always start one on the board, one in reserve. That's like my go-to. One of them just kind of runs in early and like freaks people out, being like, whoa, did you place your screens in the wrong place? Here I am. And then the other one, he's the powerhouse. He kind of comes in and he just gets to business. I've had these guys win games literally by themselves. You know, I could have brought just a couple of more units and they would have won the game. But they require, you know, a little bit of babysitting. You need to make sure you're doing it right. But I just think when Goretrack is a detachment that wants to give your opponent problems, and no one gives someone problems like a Hellbrute. So if you're playing Goretrack and you're not running a Hellbrute, you're kind of actively choosing to make life easier for your opponents. And that's my opinion on it. So.
Absolutely. And I 2 is fantastic. I personally put them both in reserves most of the time. Having a turn 2 and 3 ingress is incredible. You don't need to have that turn 3 one. You don't need to have a second guy in reserves. On the board is completely reasonable. But if you want to end a game that you are coming relatively close on, being able to say it is turn 4, and I have right now coming at you a Hellbrute and 10 Berserkers, what have you got left? The answer to that normally is not enough.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And I guess the last talking point is the Land Raider, which, you know, if you want to run 8-bound in Goretrack, you just have to run a Land Raider, because you want to give 8-bound Lance, and 8 Las Cannons are good. And reactive moving and move through walls and jump back into the Land Raider and all the things that we've talked about are good things to have in the world. So why wouldn't you bring a Land Raider when it's actually good on the table? It will make your heart happier. Just bring the Land Raider.
And we've talked a lot about the Land Raider with the Codex. We all openly admit that BS4 is not reliable, it's not consistent, but it is hilarious. Mm-hmm. It is great fun. And having a detachment in which you don't need it to do damage for you to be happy with it is everything you need. Like in Goretrack, you don't have to care if it doesn't kill that random tank up the board. Like, it'd be great if it did, obviously. But that's not your game plan. A Rhino's damage is purely additional damage in a list that already pumps out so much in the midboard.
Yep.
And it's fantastic. You're only ever happy when the Land Raider pops off. You're never sad when it fails you. It's
That's
great.
so true. Yeah. I think I'm going to finish this on a quote from one of my very good friends who said, "The Forge Fiend keeps you honest. The Land Raider keeps you guessing." And that is honestly just perfect for the Raider. But why stop at one Raider, right? Because we've got another list to talk about.
We certainly do. This list, it won an event just 2 weeks ago over in New Zealand. It's got some really interesting stuff in it, including we talked about recently the fact that you can run Terminators in Goretrack. So this list has Khorne, it has the Scout Mo. It does not have Fight First, which I'm not convinced about, but I mean, he won an event, and I haven't won an event with Goretrack, so who am I? So it does have a second. It has a second Mo who hasn't got an enhancement. I assume that's just points, and it has this Slaughterbound with Unleash Hell. For those three leaders, Khorne, Mo, you've got 30 Berserkers, you've got 2 Rhinos, and 2 Land Raiders. 2 Land Raiders is amazing. I adore this list for that. And the rest of your points, because you spent most of them already, are taken up by a single squad of 3 8-pound, a single squad of 10 jackals, and a brick of 5 Terminators. There's not too much to talk about with this list. A lot of it does what we already expect it to do. It just has more of the Rhino package, more of the Berserker package. It plays that very obvious Wave Assault game that we've already talked about. But the Terminators are a nice bit of spice in the list, and I really like what Terminators can do. I think they're very flexible in Goretrack because you can start them in a Land Raider, and that's pure value. There's guys in a Land Raider that are able to get out every turn, and if you want to just spend your Berserkers, go and let them die afterwards, you can just get the Terminators out every turn, Daka something, do a fairly significant sum of damage, spend a CP, get back in the Raider. You can do that with Terminators as many times as you like. You can also deep strike them near a Land Raider, which you've already sent up the board. Try and bomb a 9-inch charge into something after you've already cleared a screen somewhere else. If you make it, great. Your Terminators are happy they've killed something. If you fail it, your Terminators just pay a CP, get back into the Land Raider. I'm a big fan of the Terminator package. I still think it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's the thing holding it
5
back.
bodies is a very, very steep price for what those 5 bodies can do. But our guy made it work.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the pressure from 2 Land Raiders, that's where, they start to become a bit reliable in terms of their output. I do love it. I think it's Streaking Grime Jack in our Patreon Discord has like a absolute craving for 2 Land Raiders. He won't be talked off it. I respect it. I think Goretrack is a lot about expression. I mean, the expression for us is like the Hellbrutes, the extra jackals. For someone else, it might be like, oh, I'm going to bring like 3 predators, because like that genuinely could work in Goretrack, or you can bring a Forge Fiend build, or you can make a Goretrack list with the Lord of Skulls. Like, apart from the Helldrake, there's not really any vehicle in our codex that Goretrack can't make work. I mean, like, there's a world where you make Defilers work in Goretrack. Like, there just is. There shouldn't be, but there is. So yeah, it's like, this is just a really cool variation of it. And while I think the 2 of us feel like Drive 2 Unalive is it's a little bit of like the kind of peak Goretrack kind of list in terms of like success rate and utilizing the toolbox, it doesn't mean like you can't do good with a very different list. You absolutely can. I mean, literally, this person has won a tournament with 2 Land Raiders and Terminators. Like, that's just incredible. So it's a great detachment for creativity, for skill expression, all the things that we kind of like to play with World Eaters. But I don't think it's easy. And I think people who maybe watch this and say, oh, I'm going to bring Goretrack to the club, next club night, and they go down and it doesn't work on the table, It's not because like it's bad. It's just because it takes a little bit of time to get used to all the tools, and you really need to have a capacity to look at a board state and just evaluate in a very short space of time, in this moment, what are the most amount of things I can do with this board state. Because you can usually do a lot with Goretrack, much more than Berserker Warband. Warband is great. Warband is like, I need to get to the staging area. Have you got to the staging area? Yes. Okay, cool. You don't need to do too much more thinking. Whereas Goretrack is like, okay, I need to get to the staging area, and then I need to tell my opponent every turn all the bad things that can happen if they come near the staging area. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on there. But it's so much fun. Like, it's genuinely, I think if Goretrack hadn't existed, I might have, like, stopped playing 40k, because it's keeps it fresh. You know, there's never a stale game with Goretrack. It's always like, oh, wow, I can't believe that weird situation just happened. But, yeah. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've talked a lot about how fun it is. My little personal sort of reason to take Goretrack, if I was to look at somebody who was wondering about whether or not they should run Goretrack, somebody who's relatively new to the game, in my opinion, Goretrack is the best attachment world eaters have for learning to play the game in the right way, because it really rewards you actually being a good sportsman. It rewards you warning your opponent about stuff, telling your opponent what you can do, because that's the way that I would personally encourage, and I think that's the way that any of us would encourage somebody to play the game, is with good sportsmanship, is with playing by intent. And if you do that in Goretrack, you will get better results. Regardless of your skill on the tabletop, your skill as a sportsman will actively improve your win rate. And learning to do that in Goretrack is a great chance.
You're also you're not hurting yourself by telling your opponent these things you can do, because you're controlling. And also, like, I think I believe it's Pierce who always says it, where he's like, I want to beat you when you're playing at your best. And like, I want that as well, where I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to tell you about all these things because you've clearly forgotten, because there's so much going on. I don't expect you to remember, but hey, moving that squad there with the intention of charging this rhino will do X, Y, and Z. And now it's like, okay, cool, that rhino doesn't get charged, I don't get to use my stuff, but also that rhino is now safe, you know? So it's about, just because you don't get to use your stratagems doesn't mean that they haven't been effective. And I think that's very, very apparent in Goretrack, much more so than others. So I would kind of encourage people. I think actually what you said there is so important, is just like, it educates you in how to be a better player and how to get really good at communication as well, because you have to communicate a lot in Goretrack. I would also say, have you been beaten by Eldar recently in the last 12 months? Do you want to live the Eldar experience with chain axes? Play Goretrack. It's basically like playing Eldar. You will get to troll your opponent just as hard as Fuegan has trolled you. And you know what? The only time I've been able to beat that stupid Eldar build was with Goretrack, because I have almost as much messed up stuff as they do. Because sometimes Fuegan just doesn't kill the rhino, and then you're having a good time. But yeah,
it's game over. Yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, is there anything else we want to touch on before we start to close this one out?
I think that pretty much covers everything we were going to go on about here.
Awesome.
If you would like to learn more about Goretrack from some of the people who are keenest on it in the world, arguably,
yeah, I think that's great. It's a niche group, but
has our Discord. We have a very active Patreon corner now, and our patrons get a bit more access to our brains. Mm-hmm. And it's a really thriving place to be if you want to learn World Eaters.
And I think actually over the holiday period we are going to be doing the Goretrack seminar for our Patreons, so they really want to dig deep into my brain and discover the terrible things lurking inside there. So I'll probably be hosting one of our kind of seminars for the Patreons, specifically on Goretrack over the holidays. So yeah, if you want to know more about how to drive to Unalive, that's the place to go. But yeah, fantastic detachment. I think I speak for both of us when I say it is just incredibly fun. You should try it out. Don't be put off by not being Berserker Warband. It will still do all the damage you want it to do. And you'll have a lot of fun, and you'll learn about a bunch of cool new abilities. So I think for now, this has been a really fun episode of Competitive Insights. I've really enjoyed doing this. I love talking about Goretrack. Anything you want to say before we close this one out, Josie?
No, I'm all good. This is my favorite detachment, and it could be yours. Give it a try.
Yep. Absolutely. Love it. All right, everyone. So until the next one, y'all stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.